Ah, man, so close.
It was always the
So close.
Warriors, buddy.
I thought my boys could do it, but God lay them the rest. Oh man, it's just such a crazy series. Kings Warriors just wrapped up. Warriors found a way in Game 7. Steph and those guys found a way to get the job done. Steph had a
Yep.
50 ball on the Kings, and the beam is now burnt out for the season. Really a sad moment. I've been following the Kings as I know it for a little while, and was very happy for their season. I will say, in comparison to Giannis, with them setting a new bar for themselves this season, though it is defeating this way, was not fully a failure. But sad still that has come to rest as we have right now. But now we have to look forward. We're here in LA, happy for the Lakers, and excited to get on to it. Before we jump further into it, though, I just wanted to say first, it's your boy G with Alec. We're here. We're Real Fans Reside in 6300. Thank y'all for tuning in. Make sure you like, rate, review, subscribe, comment, all the good stuff for us. Definitely appreciate all the love you guys show our way. Now we're just excited to get into what's going to be going on with the Lakers and the Warriors here coming up this following week for round 2 of the Western Conference playoffs here. So good stuff. And Alec, real quick, just your first thoughts on the finale of the Warriors and Kings.
Yeah, man. Steph showed why he's one of the greatest players to ever do it. He was historic in his 50 points. I believe that was the first ever 50-point game in a Game 7 by a player. And they needed every bit of it. And he was sensational. So that was a really, really fun game to watch. Going into it, we said we couldn't really get a feel for who was going to get the edge in that Game 7. It was a competitive series throughout. But ultimately, the experience and the excellence of Steph Curry, along with Kevon Looney, who was huge with his 21 rebounds in that Game 7 as well.
I was going to get to him, correct.
They really came to play, and they were just able to outlast the Kings, who gave them everything they had throughout this series as a young up-and-coming team. They put it all on the line, but the Warriors just had a little bit more juice. It seemed like the Kings kind of got a little bit burnt out by the end of the third, and Steph still had another gear to hit. So, yeah.
As we talked a couple episodes ago about Giannis and his quotes about failure, which I mentioned at the beginning as well. And we talked about, I joked about how there are lessons to be learned in these losses, though there are losses still. And the Kings definitely learned a lot of lessons in this final game and throughout this whole series. We saw the importance of the big man and saw just how valuable a guy like Kevon Looney was, as he, I think, was of course beyond the obvious of Steph and what he did. The next most important person in line was Kevon, as he had multiple games with 20+ rebounds and really held down the paint for them when we didn't think that'd be possible.
UCLA impact right there.
Whatever, man. Whatever. But for this moment, definitely a major salute to him, because he changed the series with how impactful he was on the boards. We had bigs that were somewhat of offensive threats, as we talked about. Sabonis being all NBA guy potentially. Trey Lyles during the playoffs, and Keegan Murray and Barnes. We had some wings and bigs that we thought would be able to withstand the wings and bigs that the Warriors had. But clearly, the Warriors, with the leadership of Steph, were able to pick up their game and elevate far more than the Kings could, and that clearly was the difference again as Looney stepped up. So again, as much as I'm hurt the Kings lost, I'm happy. Promise that it's still a good season, and I'm happy with what came of it. Though this was a tough loss earlier today. So yeah, moving on now to the Lakers and the Warriors. How do you think this series is going to play out, man? It's gonna be wild.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it, but I wanted to first kind of recap that Lakers Grizzlies finale as well, as the Lakers had a dominant performance in Game 6, winning by a score of 40 points, 125-85. It was a wire-to-wire beatdown from the Lakers, and I think showed to me why this team can potentially win a title. I think we had some concerns about them going into round 1, and we even said they could potentially be fool's gold. But for me, it solidified for me why this Lakers team can be a potential championship team this year.
I didn't plan on having a hot take, but I'm gonna kind of give this to you right now. Can they still be fool's gold because of the injuries that the Grizzlies had? Though the Grizzlies still did have a valiant effort that they put forth and then tailed off at the end. But seeing that they were the most injured team of the remaining teams in the playoffs, the Lakers getting them in the first round could have been fool's gold to make the Lakers think that they could dominate other teams like that going forward. In reality, when you go up against a Warriors team now going forward that has a healthy big that they can continue to throw at them, as well as all their guard play and guys that they have their full arsenal that's going to be available to them. On the other side, we saw how good Denver looking in their first game, and the Suns, they figured it out, have some pieces that surely can be thrown all at this Lakers squad. So is it possible that it actually was still fool's gold even in valiant victory?
For me, that's not the case, only because I feel like the West is as wide open as it's ever been. And I don't feel like any of these other teams are capable defensively as the Lakers are. I think they're clearly the best defensive team in the West, probably the best defensive team in the league. We now have a sample size of 30 games since the All-Star break where they have had the best record. I believe, they've been 21-9 in their last 30. Right. So you can no longer say it's a fluke how good they've been able to be since the trade deadline, especially now that they have more depth in that trade that they made for Russell Westbrook, getting D'Angelo Russell and getting Malik Beasley and getting Rui Hachimura earlier with the Nunn trade. Correct. They now have players to provide depth, and we saw that in the first series with the Grizzlies, where they had 5 different leading scorers in 6 games between Rui, Braun, Reaves, AD, D'Lo. That shows that on any given night, it doesn't have to just be LeBron or AD carrying the offensive load. They have other guys who can step up and create for themselves and others. So I think this is a very, very complete team, and that's something that a couple other teams don't necessarily have. I think the Nuggets are the next most complete team, and they're showing why they deserve to be the 1 seed and earn that spot. But I think the Suns lack depth. And I think the Warriors, while they have superpower offense and Steph at the top, I don't think they have quite as much depth as the Lakers do now. So yeah, I'm not as concerned about them being fool's gold. I think they're a legit contender, and I think they've showed that, especially with how dominant they were closing out the Grizzlies, regardless of the injuries.
Definitely contenders. I didn't want to completely diminish them like that, but there are many folks that say it's Lakers West to lose. I still think that the Nuggets and other squads like that have valiant efforts that they've shown to say that they could be considered at least right next to them. So I don't think it's clearly Lakers that are in control, that control how the West plays out. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. We'll get more into that as we go on. But I kind of get into that. Actually, we'll go ahead and jump into it. As we said, we introduced a new segment, talked about True AF. Alec Foster AF wanted to have a segment that highlights a statement that he co-signs each week, whether it be a statement of his own he creates that was based on things that he sees, or the statements around the sports world that people put out that he co-signs and wants to stamp as his Troy F statement of the week. We'll allow Alec to have his moment, and then we go back and forth on whether I agree with it or not. And we have our co-host on that joins at times, they'll add in their opinions too. But for today, it's me and you. So Alec, what is your True AF statement after this Warriors Kings game?
I think you'll have some slight pushback here for sure, Lord. But I'm so confident in this take that I put money on it over a month ago now, when the Lakers were, I think, like in the 9 or 10 spot. But I saw how wide open the West was. But my bold statement is that the Lakers are going to win the Western Conference. I think they are the best team in the Western Conference from what I've seen since the All-Star break. They've been a completely different team post-trade. I think they're deep. I think they're versatile. I think their defense is really hard. When they clamp down, it's really hard to score on them, especially with AD anchoring it and covering up guys' mistakes. It's solely for me depends on the health of AD. Because if AD isn't healthy, it's a completely different team. But AD healthy, playing a two-way game, I think he had 26 or 27 blocks in the first round. He's a dominant force defensively, and then of course he can give you 30 points on the offensive end. So it's really hard for me to see any team in the West beating this Lakers team 4 times out of 7. So I got them winning the Western Conference.
I like that statement. I want to fully co-sign that statement, but it's hard for me to do so because even in their dominance, this last series that we just saw from them as they turned things on, we still saw moments of inconsistency across the board from AD. Though he did stuff on the defensive side when offense lacked, and from LeBron, who I didn't see fully elevate as we hoped that he would. As you pointed out, there are other league scorers beyond LeBron for like 5 out of these games, I believe it was. So seeing that there are other guys that may have to take over, I don't know if we can fully rely on those guys. As we've seen that there were moments where we talked about Rui Jordan, or where we called him after the first game, and Austin Reeves was being called Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, whatever you want to call him, after game 1.
No one was calling him Kareem, man.
But Twitter said, whatever.
Okay.
Was somebody said it for me to see. I didn't get it myself. But somebody had all the grand names for all these role players. And as great as they are, there were moments after that where they showed some dip from those bars that they did set early on. So just seeing how they can go up and down at times, seeing that AD and his game can sometimes go up and down. I would want to fully co-sign that, but I can't fully do it just yet. Especially not after seeing what we just saw from Steph and what we saw from the Nuggets in their first game too. I think those teams definitely are on a mission as well and can put up very valiant efforts and very well could win the West over this Lakers squad.
Do you think any team can defend better than the Lakers can?
I wouldn't say better, but I think they can do it close enough.
Who would you say, like the Warriors? I
think the Warriors can with the offense to match that could get them over the hump. And the Nuggets, while their defense can lack with Jokic in the middle at times, that if Jamal Murray can continue to elevate his play as he's done, and Michael Porter Jr. and guys around him can continue to elevate as they seem to be doing it at the moment, I think while their defense may not fully be there, they'll have the offense that can keep up with them throughout the series when they play against each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't think any team can keep up with them defensively, and I think they can score with any team. So, like, ultimately, it's just going to be how well they're able to clamp the high-powered offense of those three other, because those three other teams do have really high-powered offenses in Steph, KD and Booker, and Jokic and Murray. But yeah, I think they're going to be able to slow those guys down. I think we'll talk about in our later segment the matchup with the Warriors. I think this may be the toughest matchup for them as far as guarding the guards and the quickness of the Warriors. But I just think this team defensively is really, really tough to beat. And then we hadn't really talked about LeBron. You mentioned he didn't necessarily perform up to his standard throughout the entire first round against the Grizzlies, but he's someone that gets better throughout the playoffs too. And especially as a series gets longer, LeBron is usually better as it goes longer. Like if you're pushing it to 6, especially in a game 7, I'm trusting LeBron in that scenario.
Right.
And then if you have AD playing next to him like a top 5 player in the world, and then you have Reeves, you have D'Lo chipping in a 30-point game, you have Rui chipping in. I think they're just really tough to stop when you have that many guys that can produce. So yeah, I'm pretty confident in this Lakers team getting the job done in the West.
All right, yeah. So I totally hear that. I hear what you're saying about LeBron. I hear what you're saying about him being able to bounce back and how he definitely elevates his game during the playoffs and all that. I guess I will say too, though, is that we saw, for example, I think it was game 5, maybe it was or game 6. Game 5. They started doing the 1 game or 1 day break between the games instead of the 2 days. And after that first game, the legs started to show a little bit.
Well, he had the 2020 game in game 4, and then like he gave a lot in that game clearly.
Sure.
And so game 5 he shot poorly.
So I was just talking about him elevating his game, his elevation now at this age, which is crazy to say with LeBron. But the reality is we have seen signs of, okay, if he puts up 20 and 20 in 1 game, he might coast the next game. And now we get deeper in the playoffs against teams like the Warriors, who are very fast-paced every game, against Nuggets squad that doesn't keep up the pace, and teams that could push the pace much more than this Grizzlies squad did, though they did have a solid pace themselves. That doesn't concern you with LeBron as you talk about his elevation?
Not necessarily. I mean, I don't think the Lakers are going to sweep anybody. Like I think they'll drop a game or 2 in a series. But on that same token, as you talked about LeBron having an off game after giving it his all, I mean, the Warriors gave everything they had and stole that game 5 on the road in Sacramento, and then game 6 they kind of laid an egg. But we saw them come back in game 7, and we know that what that result was with Steph. So I think LeBron is just as capable as Steph. He's a couple years older than Steph, but I think he's still as capable as Steph of putting up a big time performance when you need it most. I think the all-time greats you can count on to do that.
Okay, so we shall see. Let's go ahead and jump into this next series. How do you see? Let's just jump straight to it. How do you see this Lakers and Warriors series playing now? You think? I mean, you already kind of said it with saying that the Lakers are going to get
Win
to the Western Conference Finals, but and what detail do you think they get it done?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is probably, I think this is the tougher matchup that they'll have over potentially the Nuggets and the Suns, because of the championship pedigree there, from the top down, from Steve Kerr to Steph, Draymond, Clay, Wiggins. I mean, like, these guys, most of these guys are from that championship team from a year ago still too, so they have that experience, even the young guys. But Steph and the quickness of the guards concerns me a little bit for the defensive matchup for the Lakers, because Steph and Poole and Clay can get off and get hot.
Right.
And we do have D'Lo out there, who's not the greatest perimeter defender, and Reaves out there, who is a solid defender, but not an elite one. I do trust the defensive anchor that AD is to cover up for some of those mistakes or blow-bys that happen. And I'm interested to see, I mean, because they're going to have to blitz these screens. Like, you can't play drop coverage against these guys, against Steph or Clay or Poole. So I'm interested to see the defensive adjustments that go on throughout the series as we adjust to the play style of the Warriors. But we've seen throughout this regular season, I'm not going to give too much credence to it, but I believe the Lakers had the season series like 3-1 against the Warriors, and one of those games, both LeBron and Steph didn't play, but the Lakers won that. I believe that was right after the trade deadline, and I just think it's a tough matchup for the Warriors. As much as I said it'll be tough for the Lakers to guard their guards, it's a tough matchup for the Warriors to guard AD as well.
Correct.
Looney is going to be there, and Draymond plays AD tough, but ultimately AD playing at the peak of his powers is still a little bit too much to handle for those bigs. And if they're going to be guarding him predominantly, they're going to be probably in a bit of foul trouble. I think they're both going to make each other work for sure.
Yeah.
But that's going to be the X factor matchup to me, is that like Draymond and Looney versus AD. Because when AD plays like the best player in the series, we saw it in 2020. They're a little bit better, honestly, offensively than they were in 2020 with the creation of Reaves. They had playoff Rondo in those years, but I think playoff Rondo, as good as he is as a playmaker and being able to call out the plays defensively, I think Reaves provides something that Rondo didn't in his ability to score the ball as well. So I think this team just has a little bit more offensive firepower than that 2020 championship team did, but it has similar DNA, in my opinion.
Gotcha.
And I think between the matchup, like I said, between Looney and Draymond and AD, I think the matchup between Wiggins and LeBron, Wiggins is a good defender, and I think will maybe slow LeBron down, but I think LeBron gets the better end of that matchup as well too. You talked about the wings for the Kings. The wings kind of didn't really show out as you may have wanted them to in that series.
Sure.
A la Harrison Barnes or Kevin Huerter, who could not make a shot.
All right, we're past it.
I think the wings, especially LeBron at the top of that, are going to be better than what the Warriors had to face in round one, and that's going to be a significant change for them. And so I just think they're going to be a little bit overpowered initially before I saw the Warriors kind of have that dominant finish and Steph that 50 ball.
Right.
I was even leaning towards a Lakers in 5 scenario, but I respect Steph enough to say I think they can get a couple games. So I'm sticking with Lakers in 6.
I'm gonna go ahead and co-sign that. Seeing what the difference really, as you pointed out, just AD versus Sabonis. Like, I don't think you can back off with AD like you back off Sabonis. No. Sabonis passed the free throw line. They just left him open, let him do what he wanted. They shot a couple shots, and every time he made one, it would seem like a miracle. With AD, you got to press him at all times and make those pick and roll situations and all of that much more complicated to guard. So yeah, I think AD is going to present much more of a threat in the middle than he did. And then beyond that, I think the team can keep up similarly to what the Kings did. So yeah, I think this team will put a valiant effort. And as great as this Warriors squad is, I think yeah, having that interior presence that actually makes a difference will be the difference for the Lakers there, and they will get in 6. I'm gonna go ahead and co-sign for you there. But
really?
even
I thought you were gonna have the Warriors.
No, I'm gonna go ahead and give it to you. But I will say this though, even with that potentially being the case, looking at how things have gone for the last decade, if you take a step back, looking at these two we have in front of us, LeBron and Steph, the question is, whose era is it really? Has it really been in Steph's era this whole time, or as people have said, it's LeBron's until he's gone? Is it actually that, or the contrary?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like since 2015. Steph has 4 titles in that period of time.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say it's your era when somebody keeps winning titles in that time. So,
and Steph has a unanimous MVP from that 2016 season, I believe. That season where the Warriors did go 73-9, but LeBron did get the better of them in the finals.
Sure.
So that kind of was a feather in LeBron's cap there for the era debate. But I think both guys have a legitimate argument for it. I mean, I think if you start it a little bit farther back, like if you started in 2012 or whatever, like LeBron has a little bit more of a claim to it being his era, the last decade. But that Warriors dynasty has been phenomenal. So yeah, that's really tough to say. But I feel like Steph at times gets like, he doesn't necessarily get the shine he deserves, which feels weird to say because I mean he is celebrated as one of the better players of all time. But because of LeBron's greatness and getting to 10 finals appearances, or like 8 in a row or whatever it was at one point, you kind of forget like how dominant Steph has been. But I think Steph has just as much of a claim to it having been his era as well, to be honest.
I'll go a step further, even fully stamp it and say that we are actually in Steph's era, and that I think that the step beyond what you said and what solidifies it for me, as great as these two are, the ripple effect of both their impacts. While individually we have seen stars somewhat emulate what LeBron has done as moguls and things beyond the sport, in regards to just the basketball in the game, what we see, the Warriors dynasty led by Steph changed the game. Like everybody plays the game, shooting threes and things as they do now because of what that Warriors team implemented with their death line, or where we called it as they started back in 2012 or whenever that was. So seeing the ripple effect from both those on the court, I do think it's slightly more of a claim for Steph. LeBron definitely has been dominant. I see his runs and how he's made the finals for the amount of times that he has, and the dominance he's been able to sustain for his career as long as he has. But in regards to success as a team and all of that, and on the court, as you pointed out, there are multiple times when LeBron was on a good run, and now, which is wild to say, he's gotten hurt or the team wasn't good enough, or whatever the case, at least in the last few years, but they haven't gotten over the hump. Yes, they were able to get it done in the bubble, but surrounding that, there's been a few years now where the Lakers squad, LeBron's teams, haven't quite met the standard. While Steph's teams, even while they had their one down year, were able to bounce back a year later and hoist the trophy. So I think we are actually more in Steph's era than LeBron's at this point. They both, it's neck and neck at this point, honestly. Like, it's splitting hairs if you wanted to. But yeah, definitely glad to be able to enjoy both right now in this moment, as well as all the others in the league, and very excited for this series. Any other comment on this series or anything else you want to note real quick as we get out of here?
No, I think it's going to be a very exciting one. The Steph LeBron narrative is going to be one that's pushed throughout sports media for sure. Throughout the coming,
I might say off Twitter, the whole conversation online is about to be the most toxic series we ever seen. So yeah, I'm not looking forward to that part.
I'll say it too. I don't want to hear crying about Reaves getting free throws, man. I don't want to hear weak.
I ain't.
I don't know. I'm not talking about you specifically.
Who's in the room right now? I ain't saying nothing about Reaves.
No, not you specifically. Just on Twitter, NBA fans, whatever it is. I don't want to hear that narrative. Oh, Reaves is getting all the whistles. Blah. Like, come on, man.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't think that'll be the case. I think it should be pretty evenly called, as both these teams have guys that have presence there. I guess I'll throw this out real quick for the funniness. You brought them up. Reaves or Poole? Who you got as the third piece on either squad?
Honestly, like, earlier in the year, I would have said Poole. Like, I thought Poole was like solidified as a better player. He got that extension. He got his $30 million, and he got the championship last year. He was an important piece for the Warriors. But to be honest, I think Reaves has been the better player. He's definitely been the better player in the playoffs so far.
Sure.
And he's been the better player since the All-Star break. Like, Poole has been very up and down, while Reaves has been very consistent for his past 30 games. So I think right now Reaves has been a better player. I think right now too, Poole probably has a higher ceiling. Like, we've seen him be able to hit 30-point games or whatever in the playoffs, but we haven't seen it this season in these playoffs yet. And I think Reaves has been, like I said, he was the leading scorer in one of those games for the Lakers in the Grizzlies series. I think he's been more consistent. I think he's been reliable, playing 30, 35 minutes a game for this Lakers team. So yeah, I would have to give the slight nod to Reaves here.
Yeah, we haven't had a pool party yet this postseason, and it's been shocking to see some of the mistakes on the opposite side from him, where it seems like he's completely out of character. So yeah, I would lean Reaves in that too, and we'll see if Jordan Poole can elevate his game to get back ahead of him, as many folks, as you said, thought he once was. So yeah, gonna say stay tuned on all of that. Excited for it all. For now, that is it though. Appreciate y'all for tuning in to us. It's your boy G and Alec here at Tech 300. Follow me at Just Say G. Follow Alec at Alec R. Foster online. Follow the show wherever you on IG and TikTok at section.300, Twitter at section sports, excuse me. And yeah, just excited to continue carrying on, following the Lakers and all going on in the NBA as things carry on these playoffs. So good stuff here. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. That'll be it for right now, but surely plenty more to be on the way. And yeah, we'll see y'all again shortly, man. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Peace.
Deuces.